conception. And hold on, it looks like okay. All right. Looked like we had an interloper for a second. So 16th anniversary of conception, but the actual birth was in January of 2009. And that gestation period between kind of the creation of the white paper and the actual birth, it still came out with essentially no value, right? 0.0001 cent or something like that, or 0.0003 cents. And, there's the famous 10,000 Bitcoin for a pizza and all that, or 2 pizzas and all that good stuff. But I will argue that those first few years, kind of like an infant, there's not a lot of there. I mean, raising, particularly the first few months of life, there's just not, they eat, they sleep, they poop, they cry. Yeah. It's tough. And I think that's what Bitcoin was in those earliest days. So I'll even argue that we're probably a decade-ish into, and invited me, and, we will be the MicroStrategy of Asia for sure. Mm. And, to have Michael Saylor actually comment on that in Forbes the other day was mind blowing. So pretty cool.
So Mark, do you think we've crossed the chasm? Like Bitcoin has gone mainstream, TradFi's here, the politicians are on board, and it's just a matter of time?
I mean, 100%, right? And I do agree that this year was a very, very big year. Like that Sweet 16, right? To get your driver's license and all that good stuff and kind of get out of that, little kid phase into not quite adulthood at 18, but it's a pretty big year. But again, the best is yet to come. So yes, we are more mainstream and yes, now there are, pick a number, 250, 300 million holders and users around the world, but that's a fur piece from, the multiple billions that will someday transact in Bitcoin on a daily basis. Mm. And, I say this all the time, my grandkids are Zoomers, right? They're Gen A's and they'll never know what this is, right? They'll never have a leather wallet. Mm. They'll never have one. Is people are realizing that one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin actually doesn't change. Mm. It's the thing that we all, and when I say we all, meaning global society, chooses to value it in. So in Argentina, the price only goes up because the peso only goes down. Right. In Turkey, the price only goes up because the lira only goes down. In lots of places around the world, mostly where there are dictators, they devalued the currency. That's part of the dictator playbook. Yep. Because it siphons the wealth up to the tippy top, the all-seeing eye. And you could argue pretty convincingly that, the current Western administrations, broadly speaking, are doing the same thing, right? They're devaluing their currencies. So the people at the top, their donors, keep them in power and get super rich. Because if you borrow in a wasting asset and you have to pay back in dollars that are worth less, and apply unlimited demand. Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, I happen to, through my 13-year-old, play some video games, some card games. So we played Magic the Gathering, right? And there's a video, I love it. This kid got the one of one. Literally, Wizards of the Coast printed one cardboard card, little Magic the Gathering card with the ring from the Lord of the Rings collab they did. And he's videoing it as he unboxes it. And his hands like literally shaking like this because he just made $2.5 million. He actually did sell the card for around that much. Wow. People are like, well, that's ridiculous. It's a piece of cardboard. Yes, it is. But there's only one in the whole world. Yeah. People say, well, I could just go make 1,000 of them. They won't be the same. Yeah. I mean, and you can say, no, that's dumb. Or you could say the Mona Lisa being priceless is dumb, but there's only one. And there will only ever be one.
Yeah.
And I'll give you one last thing on this. So I was in the Vatican Museum this past summer. Amazing place, right?
Yeah.
Now, the story of the Vatican Museum is a little less good because the old popes about Bitcoin it is one of the most perfect ways to capture time and value in a point in time and space uniquely. And the network verifies who owns it and what they exchanged for it. And then when you're ready to, sell it forward, it does it again. And you can't change it, meaning one Bitcoin is always going to be one Bitcoin. I bought usually if I'm in my home office, you see the little buy Bitcoin sign behind me. So I bought that using Bitcoin. And that fixed amount of Bitcoin that I used to buy it, the value of that asset has appreciated in relation not just to the fact that it's a scarce asset. It's not the buy Bitcoin sign, but it's a buy Bitcoin sign. Christian made it, but it's not the one. But if I sold it for the same number of Bitcoin, it would be worth meaningfully more than when I bought it. And it's like I saw a great stat yesterday. The U.S. hegemony has had a good run. It was exacerbated in 1971 when we cut a deal with Saudi and said, all right, here's the deal. We'll protect you at all costs. Doesn't matter what you do to us. Doesn't matter what you do to anybody else. We'll protect you as long as you price all oil transactions in dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Why does that matter? Well, that made the dollar really the hegemonic world reserve currency. And if you think about it, the US is only about 8% of global trade because we don't have that big a population, right? And yet it's 60 odd percent of global currency. That doesn't make any sense. And that number has been shrinking because, one by one, China, Russia, others have started to move off. Now, the first two, it didn't work out so well. So Iraq said they were going to get off the dollar. And Saddam, exit stage left.
Yeah.
Because 7 of the 10 are almost word for word. I'm like, that's wow. That's a wow. And now people say, oh, but Trump just lies. He's just saying stuff to say stuff. Yeah, that's true. Donald cares about Donald, and Donald cares about Donald's family and getting rich.
Right.
But in so doing, the things that he has said now out loud that he agrees with are things that are pro-business, pro-innovation, inclusion, meaning financial inclusion, as opposed to exclusion using fiat. So all of those things, I think, make it a very clear choice. Now, we'll see what happens, but I am hopeful that logic prevails. And I think if people get beyond the rhetoric and focus on, there